Still on Sunrise here on ANEKE TV. Let's take a quick look at what's making the front page headlines across major newspapers today. So we check the Nation's newspaper, and which says state police has come to stay. Necessary, inevitable, says IG. Now we go over to the Punch. It says state police, IG sets up panel to propose framework. Now we go over to the Vanguard, which says boost for state police as IGP sets up panel on framework. Now we go over to the Daily Trust, where we see state police framework begins. Now we check the Daily Sun newspaper headline. We're seeing ANEKE begins review of political parties guidelines. And we are going over to the Guardian. We are saying state police committee resumes amid framework abuse concerns. Now we go back to Punch, where we are going to anchor just shortly. Punch says state police, IG sets up panel to propose framework. It says the Inspector General of Police has established a panel to develop a framework for the possible creation of state police in Nigeria, aiming to guide its structure, operations, and oversight to enhance local security while addressing concerns about misuse.
All right. Looking at this headline, the issue of state police is something that's been at the front burner for a while now. This, if one may recall, is not the first time we're hearing call for state police. It becomes news now that the new IG of police, Tunji Dusu, is now, we have been seen in the headline, inaugurating a panel to look at the framework of this proposed state police. But when you look at the call over time, even institutions, and you look at these pan-socio-cultural organizations that we have across the country, starting from Arewa Consultative Forum, even the Ohaneze Ndibo, and you move over to the Salsa, Pandef, and the likes of them, over time have been, clamoring for issues around state police. This argument, has been making run over the years, and it seems that in this period is gaining more traction in this very dispensation. But over time, we've witnessed arguments, those who are for and those who are against, as to the issues around state police. But one thing is obvious in these times, that the federal police, as it is presently constituted, seem overwhelmed with the security challenges that is bedeviling the nation at this point in time. And there is need, therefore, to not just recalibrate the federal police, but to look inward and see that what Nigeria demands at this point in time is a new dimension to policing. And one of those new dimensions is the call for state police. So one is becoming overjoyed to see that the president of Nigeria and the IG of police are lending credence to this call. Over time, people have panicked and, reason to argue against having state police in Nigeria due to foreseen abuse by state actors. And when you talk about state actors, you look at how the issues they raise is how has at the subnational, the state governors, or perhaps even the local government chairman, been able to handle the little security apparatus within their control. So, subject to this abuse, many stand against issue of state police. But like I did say, one can no longer stand on that argument, given the challenges that we are witnessing in this era. You look at the rise of insecurity, that's bedeviled our nation, where people cannot travel freely. We cannot overemphasize that point, where the bandits are beginning to take over territories. People are kidnapped and killed at will. The issue here, one would ask, is to look at the benefits of having state police. And the question arises, will state police help to steady or stem the tide of security challenges that we are witnessing across board? The answer becomes yes. Then one begins to look at how do we now stem the situation from controlled by state actors. And if you listen very well and follow the argument over time, you've seen that even former state governors who are no longer in power have over time come out to support the issue around state police. And one of such issues that would lead credence to why there is need for state police at this time is when you look at, for example, the governor of Zamfara State. I love citing him as an example, who over time has expressed a handicap to having a handle on security issues around his state. Is unquote that he did say that they know where these bandits reside. They know where they are. But more often, because they do not have control of security apparatus within their domain, they cannot lead an onslaught into combating these security threats, leading to asking a critical question. Why is it that the state governors cannot control entirely the security of their state? And you find that answer in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which makes state policing or police in Nigeria a federal, a federal tool. That the call and control must come from the center. You have a centralized police where you have an IG of police who takes direct order from the president. So therefore, when at the state level you have a commissioner of police within your domain, more often he takes his order from the center, and therefore you cannot in entirety marshal out your own security plans on how to combat security challenges within your domain. And having said all this now becomes expedient that will look into areas of around instituting state police or community policing, as many would want to say. And like I did mention, it becomes even more heartwarming that the body language of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu seems to be in support of institutionalizing state police at this point in time. And he is one when you look at him, you will see that he is one that could marshal out the opinion both at the legislature, at the subnational level, and at the local government level to muzzle the required constitutional numbers to see that we are able to get the legal backing to have a state police. So hearing the new IG of police talking and stating committing a committee to look at the framework tells you that yes, actions are in place, but one thing that we need to call is that they need to expedite this action. We've passed what the challenges that we are facing as a people in terms of insecurity is no longer where we continue to do the Nigerian usual of setting committees. And I tell you, if you go to the archive of government, you will see committee reports that are not implemented. I remember the Oputa panel is one of the late panels that you have or committees. Where are they implemented? The Udoji report, where it was implemented. There are a lot of reports that are that are gathering dust in government cabinets. So beyond setting up these panels to propose a framework and all that, they should see to it that there is a time frame, so that we'll see that action is put in place to expedite needed action and framework. Yes, when one listens to him and Mr. President, Mr. President always says that, especially when he was talking to the senators at the presidential breakfast at the presidential palace, he did tell them that yes, all efforts needs to be geared towards the state police, as that will see that the decentralized police would strengthen security and grassroots and improve a rapid response around the grassroots. And that's one thing that is lacking, because when you see the security challenge that we face, where the bandits or the terrorists, when they strike, what is the hour lapse before we're able to respond. And this issue is to the fact that the police as is presently constituted and the security architecture is overwhelmed. Therefore, you need to have a localized police in place via the state police to be able to have rapid response to issues. when you have this framework in place and you institutionalize state police, there's no doubt that every community, every look and cranny at the subnational will be able to be policed, because now it will be on need basis. If, for example, in Enugu State, when they check the number of local governments they have and they're able to marshal out beyond the local government, you have the communities that constitute the local government. Or in Enugu State, where we'll see that developments are channeled towards constituencies, you have development around constituencies and wards, you will be able to have men from these various wards, integrated into state police and marshaled to, police these communities, these wards, and this territory. So it will be on need basis and no longer the centralized policing that we'll have. But yes, I agree with the idea of police in setting up this panel, because there has to be a synergy between, when it is given that legal backing to have a state police, there has to be a synergy between the state police and the federal police to see that yes, there is effective and right framework to guide their activities. So, and one other thing here is that while I give credence to his proposing and setting up a panel, is that at the end of the day, if we have that legislative backing and the state police becomes a go, then the new recruits will be trained by the states, the current police as we have it, because they would have to need time before you begin to have structures in place. So you may need to leverage on establishing structures that you have, which is that of the current Nigerian police force. However, one would call that beyond the issue of setting up frameworks and modalities for the state police, that we should find a way to see that this training jettisons the old practice as we knew policing in Nigeria. Let it be a policing that wears a human approach to policing, not the high-handed level of police where the civilians or the citizens cannot relate effectively with police. If you move across Nigeria and you see the way police interact with citizens, you know that the mantra that police is your friend is truly in existence, which cannot be said to be same in our climate. So, with the issue of state police, one would expect that we'll begin to rethink and regenerate a new police force that will become, the yardstick to measure policing. Beyond the challenges that we face, we realize that one of the major challenges is that who is policing the police themselves? And when you talk about who is policing the police themselves, you now look at issue around their welfare, which is a major challenge why you will not have the federal police, as is presently constituted, be so effective in combating crime. You shed tears when you go to police quarters, the police barracks, and you see the very bad condition from which these police officers are meant to reside with their family, and then you may not expect anything different, especially in terms of ideology and behavior. Most of the places, most of the quarters are in total disrespect and neglect. You can't even talk of life. So when you see a policeman becoming aggressive, or they are overtly materialistic in the discharge of their duties, then you take a precursor to where they are coming from. And these are the things that we will look to be able to isolate and negate as we go into state police. And then the right framework, the constitutional framework, should be such that to allay the fears who have over the years opposed issues around state police, by saying that there's no one individual in terms of the subnational or the state governors and the trickling it down to the local government chairman that would be able to abuse the process. No, but if one looks at issues around, for example, when you go to Kano, for example, you see the Hisba, right? When you go to Lagos State, for example, you see LASMA. When you move to Kaduna, for example, you see Cadiz, right? So, or Karota in Kano State as well. You see, these are forms of state police that, even though they are channeled towards traffic and other areas, but if we can, at the subnational, be able to manage this parallel organization, when you talk about traffic and the Federal Road Safety Corps, and you're able to, synergize and manage this whole at the subnational level, then there's no gainsaying the fact that we can be able equally to manage a state police. This in itself, one may begin to look at the required resources. But I tell you that the resources shouldn't be a challenge here. It's about appropriating the right resources, which were at this moment we celebrate in this administration that there is more fund available at the subnational. So what you need to do is channel the security funds that you make available to the state governors into the state police. So I tell you, the resources will be available. The will is what at this point in time that we should speak to, that those players at the national level and at the subnational level should be able to come together, give it a go once and for all, away from rhetorics where we continue to look at the front pages of newspaper and television and we deliberate on these things and everyone goes to bed. No, given what we are facing as a people, the issue of state policing for me is long overdue and should have been implemented by now. And this is one area I do not see challenge, being that the APC-led administration is in total dominance. When you go by the number of states they control. So if Mr. President and the handlers of Mr. President can pick up a call, their phone, and through a call, they can whip all the state legislatures, the federal legislatures, they can whip them in line and will get the needed vote or support we need to create state police. And there's no doubt that that can be achieved. If we are seeing the speedy passage of bills in the Senate and the House of Rep being controlled by the APC, then this will not be a challenge as well if they have that will to implement it. And they should have the will to implement, because this is something that has to do with the very foundation of this country. You cannot see your territory and let your territory become an ungoverned state. That means government in itself is failing at its core and primary duty. And I know the president will not let that happen under his watch. Therefore, I expect them to expedite action beyond rhetorics, beyond forming of committees. Let us begin to see the legal framework for a state police so that we can begin to steady the tide. Let us begin to, take the onslaught against the insurgents, against the bandits and the kidnappings that we have around other states in Nigeria. When we talk about insecurity and insurgents, a number of times we'll take a look towards the north more. But there's nowhere in Nigeria that is as safe when you compare where we are coming from as a people. Things have so degenerated that people no longer move and travel willingly. I asked people the other day, nobody is willing to, people when they take night routes during travels, and people are quite apprehensive. But this was something we used to enjoy at one point in this nation, where you do your business, for example, in Enugu, and by tomorrow morning you want to wake up in Kano and attend to other things. And these things are no longer like that. I've known a number of transport companies that have shut down due to insecurity because they can no longer ply the roads at night. That's not even given to other issues, but the whole issue of insecurity has become an albatross on this nation. And every framework, every modality should be put in place, even having beyond state police that we are talking. I am one of the advocates of community policing as a way to see that insecurity is curbed in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We go over to the newspaper that we have next, and we're talking about the Sun, a Daily Sun. And the headline in the Daily Sun says, 2027, ANEKE begins review of political parties' guidelines. 2027, ANEKE begins review of political parties' guidelines. The Independent National Electoral Commission, ANEKE, has started reviewing the operational guidelines for political parties ahead of the 2027 general elections. The move aims to strengthen party regulation, improve compliance with electoral laws, and ensure a smoother and more transparent electoral process.
All right. Looking at this headline, 2027, ANEKE begins review of political parties' guidelines. Speaking to from Josh Amopitan, the chairman of ANEKE, it's quite a commendable move to make, especially given the new Electoral Act 2026 that is now in place, having been signed, by Mr. President, and therefore the whole political parties and ANEKE has to, toe the new guideline, and the political parties in Nigeria are under the watch of INEC. INEC is the watchdog of political parties, and like the INEC chairman Amupitan rightly says, they have to make sure that the parties operations are in tandem with the new regulations, especially as it has to do with internal party democracy and their politics, such that it will be one that will be in tandem and according to the new guidelines of the Electoral Act. If you go by the number of the speculations of the new Electoral Act, for example, we know that this new Electoral Act dictates that political parties, for example, before congresses, need to furnish INEC with digital register of their members before they can embark on a congress, on a convention, and others. And there is equally new modalities on party primaries, and these are issues or areas that INEC must make sure that there is total compliance. And let me tell you one thing: if you do not have party democracy, then the democracy that you want to be, will be negated and be a practice in breach. You need to ensure democracy thrives from the internal arrangements of the party organs. How do they arrive at their candidates? So there has to be a system in place to check that the right candidates emerge, no longer situations where some big wigs in political parties comes up and they decide to force members on other political players. So it's now within INEC to see that the quality of internal party democracy has a direct bearing on secondary election, that is equally conducted by INEC. So for me, that's a kudos. But though you remember that this Electoral Act is still in contention, there's still a whole lot of issues, contentious issues around the bill. But we'll continue to watch and see how the political parties and INEC will navigate these whole issues. Remember that during a town hall meeting recently, the INEC chairman did tell Nigerians that they shouldn't be expecting in 100% election, that Nigerians desire too much, and that there's nowhere in the world where you have 100% election. But be that as it may, I tell you one thing that Nigerians want, beyond having a credible party primaries, beyond the integrity and transparency of their internal party affairs and dealings, Nigerians want to see an election that is not just free and fair, but a very credible election. And that leads you to the questions around the modalities for this election, and where this whole new act seems to be a hanging bone on the neck of political parties, because a lot of them have come out. I remember the spokesperson of NPP, calling this whole Electoral Act as a mechanism between INEC and the incumbents to see that the incumbent emerges unopposed. And that's to say that there are a whole lot of issues that will be, that will continue to be discussed around the new Electoral Act. But one thing is that INEC will continue to play its role, and that is that of a watchdog over political parties. So internal democracy is quite important. And one thing is that, yes, political parties, we have many of them. There is a criteria, and the INEC has to make sure that these political parties met the guideline, at least the stipulated guidelines for political parties to fly at the national level. And INEC has to do this, and in that we will commend them. But while I tell you that as we journey along in 2026, we'll continue to look and see how things unfold, especially how the political parties, especially opposition political parties, how they will navigate through the new Electoral Act, and how INEC will stand on this new Electoral Act to bequeath us an election that will be, generally accepted to be free, fair, and credible. And that's the benchmark and the basis that every Nigerian asks for. And a whole lot of issues have been meted out around, the transmission of results in real time. And INEC has come out, publicly to let us know that, yes, that they have the capacity, they have the capability, speaking to Beavers, that has the capacity to not just recognize voters, it has the capacity to store and transmit these results in real time, and where there is no network, they will at that point in time, till you get to where there is network, is available, it will transmit the result. So going by what the impression INEC is creating, the question remains from the minds of these political parties and the generality of Nigerians, if INEC will detach human error from this whole the planning and the conduct of the 2027 election moving forward. And people have cited issues around the FCT election, that just off-cycle election that just happened recently, where a number of polling units, were moved from where it was, that voters became confused and were unable to locate their polling booths. And that should not, be allowed to happen going forward into the general election. Be that as it may, INEC still have time to put himself and his house in order. But one major fear in this very election going forward, especially dealing with INEC conviction that they have the material, the resources, and if fund is made available, funding becomes another big challenge to the free conduct of the next election. But where that is available, what the generality of Nigerians clamor for is that INEC will ensure that there are little or no human interference or human error in the coming election.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for that comment. And we go over to the next newspaper, where we have the Nation's newspaper. It's in the Nation's newspaper. It's one of the headlines. It says CBN boosts foreign reserves with 3.5 billion gold stockpile. CBN opens foreign reserves in gold with $3.5 billion gold stockpile. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has strengthened the country's foreign reserves by adding 3.5 billion worth of gold, a move aimed at shoring up financial stability, supporting the naira, and boosting Nigeria's external reserves. Let me take it again. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has strengthened the country's foreign reserves by adding $3.5 billion worth of gold, a move aimed at shoring up financial stability, supporting the naira, and boosting Nigeria's external reserves.
All right. This is quite commendable to CBN. For a while now has been hitting the right chords, coming out with the right policies over time. When you check the positions that the CBN has taken, especially coming into 2026, there's been a lot of kudos and commendation to the CBN for that regard. Remember that the Nigerian foreign reserve is being strengthened, for a 13-year high. We are expecting a 13-year high in our external foreign reserve, which we're told has risen up to $50.45 billion, which has never happened in the last 13 years. So that is kudos to CBN, especially given that by February, in 2025, we are still hovering around the 40 billion, 45 to 46 billion. And then in this third month of 2026, we've hit that benchmark of around 50 point something US dollars. Is enough reason to commend the CBN. But looking at the headline in the Nation newspaper, where we are informed that the CBN has moved to open foreign reserve in gold with 3.5 billion US dollars. And I tell you one thing, this is a quite commendable move on the part of CBN. One may want to begin to ask the reason why CBN will want to invest in gold or make the reserves in gold. They are not far-fetched. One of the reasons one would allude to this is issue around diversification. Remember that gold reduces over-reliance on other foreign major currencies like dollar, euro, and the rest of them, which have the risk of spiking, going high, and all that. But with gold, you have that needed stability. And again, another issue here is that with these reserves in gold, you will begin to attract even more foreign investors into your nation, who this time around will have that strong will that inflation by no means would erode their investments. Being that, yes, you have your reserves in gold, and gold is one thing that we know that is not influenced by inflation. In fact, during inflation, more often you see that gold, usually the price usually skyrockets and go high. Then another issue I've said is to protect the economy, against global shocks or geopolitical risk, like we're witnessing the crisis in the Middle East, where the US-Israeli-led alliance are taking onslaught against Iran, leading to that attempt at the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. For example, when you have escalations in this way, it has negative impact on economies, and in many ways, it begins to erode your foreign reserve. But CBN has smartly made a smart move by going to make that reservations happen in gold, which in itself will shore up our economy against such geopolitical risk. So there are a whole lot of issues and factors one will look at and see that this is a positive one, where I do not agree entirely with this administration in all the things they are doing. But when I take a look at the move of CBN of late, you have no, other but to commend the administration and the CBN for making this move, because when you look at it economically, they seem to be moves at the right direction. They are hitting the right chord. And remember that gold equally can be sold as collateral, so markets for that won't be, you won't look for markets just like the way, for example, where when the things begin to thrive better, you have a little bit stability around the globe and there are no geopolitical risk and attached, you see that the price of oil, Brent crude, would begin to trickle down and stabilize at a certain distance. But gold is that stable, so you can actually even use gold as collateral even when you're seeking foreign loans. You use it as collateral, so it's a very good move in the right direction, and a lot of economists over time has canvassed for this move, and we're seeing CBN, this administration, and under the CBN watch, being bold enough to make such moves. So it's a quite a good move, and it's quite commendable that yes, we are seeing plans geared towards stabilizing the Nigerian economy. Yeah. But one thing we will not stop calling is that when we see these good policies, let them materialize in a way that it will impact the common man on the street positively. The common man wants to get to the market and know that the price of foodstuffs are coming down, and the administration is promising us, yes, that this price would definitely come down. So it is the impact overall on the common man that matters, and this where would equally call on the CBN and the managers of this economy to work towards ensuring that yes, there's impact, and you cannot achieve that without curbing the security challenges that we have in Nigeria. So deal with the security challenges, and with stable economic policies, you see that yes, the economy will stabilize, and there will be tremendous impact and improvement on the life of the people.
Yes, I think from what you said about this whole thing, something you said that gave me a sight is when you talked about making everything to come down to the common man. That is very important, because I think the common man is just looking up to, will the price of rice change in the market today? Will the price of beans change in the market today? Will the price of what I'm buying, what I used to buy 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira, will it come down to 500 naira? And that's what the common man, the man at the grassroots level, is always looking up to, and that security side. So I think this is a move to the right direction. I will say kudos to the federal government and CBN on this particular thing. Now we move over to the Punch newspaper, which says Obasanjo says, "I won't die anytime soon." It's part of the headline in the Punch newspaper. You will see where Obasanjo said, "I won't die anytime soon." At 89, I won't die anytime soon, Obasanjo declares at 89. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, at 89 years old, confidently declared that he has no plans of dying anytime soon, highlighting his enduring health and active presence in public life. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, I take again, at 89 years old, confidently declared that he has no plans of dying anytime soon, highlighting his enduring health and active presence in public service. I've known Obasanjo all my life. I've known him all my life, and I think the major thing that I'm seeing here is that talking down of people have said age, the right age, the lifespan of Nigerians should be so and so age, 75, this age, that age, and the lifespan of people across the globe should be this. But seeing former President Olusegun Obasanjo saying that at 89 years old, that he's not even going to die, that he has no plans of dying. You know, Mr. Chi, what does it really tell us? What is it about, sir?
All right. Looking at former head of state, former president of Nigeria, who was born on March 6, 1937, approaching, the benchmark year of 89 years, which is quite remarkable. Just a year to 90, is quite commendable. And to that, I say happy birthday to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. We Nigerians celebrate you. We celebrate you for the leadership that you offered this nation. It was a life of service, all true. Yes, a life lived in the service of a fatherland, a soldier, an astute administrator and leader. So we say happy birthday, sir. Having said that, yes, being a former soldier, a military man, there's no gainsaying the fact that he has lived a healthy life, keeping a healthy lifestyle, regimented life. We know that in ways, advance the strength that we are seeing in old age. I've watched the former president, play football. I've watched him play squash, play long tennis as well. So there's no doubt that, yes, the lifestyle he has imbibed over years has helped him in old age. And looking at his comments, one will begin to laugh at, the former president, with his usual term, I dey kampe. So when we heard Mr. former president say, I dey kampe to those he termed never do well, while delivering a speech at the colloquium, to mark his 89th birthday, speaking on burden and blessing of leadership, reflection from global Africa to the world. He, after, him, is someone that, spares no fool. He would go at it, and is one who is courageous to take anybody and any government, given to the number of letters that he has written, over time. You remember that popular letter that he wrote to Goodluck Jonathan, before 2015. He's been one, and he wrote one to equally the late President Buhari. We're yet to see him write to this administration, but if eventually that happens, there is another bombshell coming. But he did, while delivering his colloquium speech, tell those he termed as never do well, who are circulating letters purportedly written by him, speaking to signs of his death and all that. And he's told them that I dey kampe. He's not going anywhere. That's why he's telling them that there's no plan between him and God at this time for him to go anywhere. He will still be here, still serve as the moral conscience of the nation, one to call leaders to order and to account, and equally charge the third force, to see that our democracy is strengthened, and not just strengthened, that will have a democracy that would lead to have meaningful impact on the life of the citizens. So, like when I started, I say happy birthday to former President Olusegun Aremu Okikelawo Obasanjo. Yes, enjoy your retirement. 89 years is no small feat, and we pray that God will continue to give you the strength to live in this old age in wisdom, and to continue to advise the nation moving forward.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now we move over to the Guardian newspaper, where we have U.S. Embassy cancels visa appointments over Abuja protest scare. U.S. Embassy cancels visa appointment over Abuja protest scare. The U.S. Embassy in Nigeria has cancelled visa appointments in Abuja due to security concerns amid fear of protest, prioritizing the safety of staffs and applicants. The U.S. Embassy in Nigeria has cancelled visa appointments due to security concerns amid fears of protest, prioritizing the safety of staff and applicants.
All right. When one sees this as a news headline, you won't be surprised. Just yesterday, the U.S. did issue security alert to its citizens in Nigeria,
Yeah.
telling them to be careful of their movements around the country and Lagos. So coming this morning to see that they've suspended visa appointments, one will not be in doubt. The United States, for example, is a country that takes the security of its citizens to be paramount wherever they are. And seeing that happen in Nigeria, is not surprising, especially given the protests that I've witnessed across the country, especially in the northern parts of the country, that we are told equally is, spreading into Lagos, where the Islamic movement of Nigeria had come out publicly to protest against the onslaught or the crisis between the US, Israel, and Iran, leading to the killing of Ayatollah Khomeini, where they have voiced vehemently against that move. Remember that the Islamic movement, Nigeria, take their relationship with Iran very seriously, being that they share similar faith and believe, and it's said that a number of times when you go into security findings and reports in Nigeria, that the funding for the Islamic movement in Nigeria, popularly called the Shiites, that the funding comes from the Ayatollah in Iran. And so when you see them protesting, it's not far-fetched that yes, you have people who have been, if one may use the word, indoctrinated to the ideologies of the Ayatollah and the Iran in this aspect, and is made manifest in the protest that we are seeing. Having said that, the US government will always take measures to see that the citizens are safe wherever they are, and they've told you that yes, the security and welfare of their staff is paramount and is first, beyond or before granting visa interviews and appointment to anybody. And for me, that's a step in the right direction. We did in this station over time did critique our government for not being proactive in their approach, when there are crises, global crises around the world, where there's need to move citizens away from crisis-laden spots. Would they chastise the government not to be waiting until there's distress call from citizens around distressed areas before they will begin to make arrangements to see that they are able to, intervene and move the citizens away from the such spots? And that's where you see that the United States are quite contrary with what is obtainable in, especially around Nigeria. The United States government, even when they knew that yes, the escalation is becoming real, they will do everything to see that they move their people, and they continue giving you security alert. Wherever you are, you see that their nationals, for example in Nigeria, are well documented. As they are issuing the alert, they are receiving the alert on their handset wherever they are. Yes, there's how detailed they are. Wherever you are, you get the detailed alert. Anywhere they are in the world, outside the United States, while they are giving up-to-date information to their citizens within the homeland, they are giving immediate and up-to-date security alert to their nationals outside the homeland. So it's not out of place that you see that their nationals in Nigeria have been warned, and they will continue to give them that prior information. And this is a level where we need to get to as a people, where we begin to value, human life. There's no doubt that even when the US is at this onslaught against Iran, where there is a detonation of the latest state-of-the-art weapons, that the United States values human life, and they will do everything to see that the life of their citizens is protected. So it's not out of place for what we are witnessing, and this is where our government need to learn. They need to learn from actions of governments like this, that the life of your citizens is paramount. And like I did say, for me, I will commend them. Yes, a lot of us maybe disenchanted, angry that our appointments are cancelled. There's need to be patient as the world navigates this Middle East crisis at this time. We pray that through the establishment of contact at the back channel, that there will be meaningful negotiation, bringing the whole crisis to a standstill. So your visa appointment, when things are so settled and the the citizens feel safe. The embassy of the United States in Abuja, feels that their staffs are safe, their citizens are safe. They will give you needed appointments, and you'll be able to secure your visa to travel or do whatever business that you have with them. So I would close by saying that our government really needs to take a cue from these actions. Yes, and as we speak about this, we should equally see to it that these protests do not disrupt or impact negatively the life of other citizens who are going about their business. The world is watching. Yes, and we should know that we are dancing at the marketplace. They need to see how we react to these whole scenarios. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Now, we go over to our sports arena where we are having a lot of things coming in the world of sports. And first of all, we're going to look at the details and the headlines from the Punch Sports Extra newspaper as we have it this morning. What is happening in the world of sports, how it is happening. And we have Falcons in limbo as uncertainty clouds 2026 WAFCON. Just beside it, we have Lukman chases ANEKE fifth. Lukman chases ANEKE Copa del Rey fifth. Yes, Copa del Rey. I was wondering which other del Rey we have apart from Copa del Rey, so that was why. He will be very talented player. Nuno Espirito says. Nuno Espirito said this yesterday before they played that match against West Ham, which they lost. I mean, this could be more sarcastic now, but let's take it further. Trasbonso coach hails Onuacho's work ethic. And you go down, you see Finidi makes NPF title claim. Then just by the side, we have Joshua undergoes rib treatment. Then by the side of the left front page, we have Adeyemi eyes EPL switch. Down to it, we have Liverpool loses frustrates slots. Liverpool loses, and that frustrates slots a lot. Frustration of slots is not just that they are losing, but also that the players are injured. I think that's part of what is in the details of the news, because a lot of currently in the world of both English league, Spanish league, and every other league, Bundesliga, there's a lot of injuries happening. But I have one question: why is Arsenal players, why is Arsenal not having injuries like every other person is having injuries, even while playing all those competitions? Arsenal is not having any injury or injury scare. They have everybody who can replace the position other people are playing. I think that's what a good team and a great team means. But let's move on. Baka confirms Balde Kaune blows. Like I said, it's injury that they are blowing here, not any other thing. The Balde is injured, Kaune is injured, and they have a Champions League game to play. So we move on to Arsenal. Len Goretzka salary demands. Just by the side, we have we don't owe Osimhen others. Galatasaray boss says that they are not owing Osimhen and others. Well, I believe what it is. We can formulate any agenda to push our narrative out there that while Osimhen was playing for Galatasaray, that he's being owed. Well, you know that this Galatasaray boss has come out to clear the claims that they are not owing anyone. And they are not paying anybody to pay Osimhen. So they know they have a direct relationship with Osimhen in the payment. They actually would see that happen. Now, just by the side, we have don't compare Itauma to Tyson. Don't compare Itauma to Tyson. Now, this is the newspaper headlines. Then in the middle, we have NFF dismisses claims Eagles World Cup hopes over. Says FIFA yet to communicate federation. So NFF dismisses claims Eagles World Cup hopes over. No. So what they are saying is that the Nigerian Football Federation has dismissed the claims that Eagles World Cup hopes are over, while we just saw that FIFA has released the list of the people who are going to participate in the playoff to qualify for the World Cup. That's going to happen in June 2026. So the Football Federation of Nigerian Football Federation has said that they currently are not, they are not going to, give down or back down. They are still having the hope to continue believing, because FIFA has not communicated to them yet, and that is what we are seeing from this newspaper headline. Now, also in the other news, Arsenal has remained unbeaten. When I mean unbeaten, in their title hopes, after they have gone through a lot of things just to go 7 points clear from from Manchester City in the title race. Well, still on that same line, a lot of matches that happened yesterday were more surprising than you could think. Imagine Nottingham Forest playing with Manchester City and having 2 goals, and then both of them played a draw game yesterday, 2-2 draw. Then Manchester United lost to Newcastle yesterday by a late winner. And I have a lot of things to just talk about in these few matches that was played yesterday, especially Manchester United's game, because Manchester United's new interim coach, Michael Carrick, has proved that he is fit for the work. But that's not just all. That's not what it is. There is also a tendency that he has capitalized, I'm just saying alleged, has capitalized on the discipline of the former coach who was sacked in January, to make the players understand and believe in what they are doing. For instance, when Ruben Amorim was coaching Manchester United, claims say that the players had more close man marking. They had more man-to-man marking than they had that Michael Carrick had. And looking at that match yesterday, of course, Newcastle were 10 man down from the first half, almost at the end of first half, before Michael Carrick was able to move into the second half and all that, before Casemiro had to score that goal that completed the 1-1. I've seen that match will end by 2-1, either Manchester United or Newcastle. But with the way Manchester United played, it was not looking as if they were headed to anywhere. It was not a good game, basically. Of course, there were lots of misses that what happened. Now, I want to go over to Manchester City game yesterday with Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest is not just a team. They are also vying for their own position, looking at what is happening in the Premier League now. As every position is important and every league is very important, we also seen that Liverpool themselves are coming up behind, and they're trying to register their efforts to make sure that they don't participate in the Europa League next season. I can tell you for a fact that top 4 of the English Premier League guys, there's a problem now because the games are very, very tight. Looking at Chelsea too yesterday, Chelsea had to win Aston Villa by 4-1, and that was not what anyone was expecting. Because remember, in one of the commentaries, I told you guys that Aston Villa will not remain in that their position. They will go down, and which they did. They went down. They came down. Now, if it was Manchester City that was there, or I would say Chelsea, or so clubs like Liverpool, you would see how much they will want to get that particular spot and get it going. But we have not seen that for a while, where a team whose mentality is not matching with the mentality of the elites in the English football, and they want to be on that kind of position. Any small thing, any slight chance, they can go down. So Chelsea yesterday, they had 4 goals yesterday, and kudos to João Pedro and Cole Palmer. João Pedro, since the arrival of this coach, has proven to be a monster striker. He has also registered assists and has scored himself out. Imagine having 16 goals in a season. Imagine having 16 goals in a season so far as of March 4th, 2026. He has had 15 goals, 16 goals, of course. And looking at his performance, you could say that this guy is going somewhere. I mean, coaches come into teams and they liberate their players. They liberate the players they want to liberate, and they bring in the person they want to bring in, and they make it look as if The other person that was being coached, that was coaching the team before, they are not doing well. But looking at João Pedro right now, he is really, really on fire. And I would say kudos to the whole team. Kudos to Chelsea for winning Aston Villa, and kudos to Manchester City too for having that draw with Nottingham Forest, and kudos to Arsenal for still maintaining their league position and their league title, and what we could call an advancement to the last day. Yes, that is where we're going to take it from. That's where we're going to cut it from this edition of Sports Extra here on ANEKE TV. And I want to thank you also for joining us in the sports news. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for that sports update. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, we'll bring you the business landscape.
Every second, the world changes, markets rise, leaders speak, stories unfold. To keep up, you don't just need news, you need clarity, you need speed, you need perspective.
That's why ANEKE TV brings you the global pulse. Accurate, reliable, right when it matters most. ANEKE TV. Move with the world.
Many thanks for staying with us, and moving away from that sports update, we'll move to the business landscape from the ANEKE TV business parlor. And starting yesterday, the Nigerian business landscape was dominated by a sharp spike in energy costs driven by global geopolitical tension, alongside a record-breaking surge in business confidence despite maintaining mounting inflationary pressure. And then if we move straight, looking at the factors that has shaped the business landscape, despite the fact that the Nigerian Economic Summit Group reported that the business confidence index hit a record high of 172.2 points for February. Growth, was broad, with non-manufacturing and the manufacturing sectors leading the charge. And then looking at the monetary shift, where the Central Bank of Nigeria reported a slight contraction in broad money supply to 123.36 trillion naira in January. Meanwhile, the CBN hiked 364-day Treasury bill rate to 16.73% to mop up liquidity. And then speaking to the appointments from Mr. President has equally gone a long way to help to shape the business landscape as of yesterday. And then we'll look at the energy and commodities. We'll know that a lot of the activities in this area are being shaped by the Middle East crisis. Yeah, Middle East having a Middle East effect, given there's a surge in fuel price. And then we saw that Dangote refinery equally is adjusted its gantry price, as he said, to be rising to be based on the rising international crude cost. Remember that Bonny Light hit $84 per barrel. And then quickly we'll run to the Nigerian stock market, where we'll give you a highlight of the Nigerian stock performance. And then we told you that the All-Share Index ASI shared 0.08% to close at 196,463.22 points, while market capitalization decreased by approximately 91 billion to settle at 126.10 trillion naira. And when you move to the gainers chart, you see that they are being led by Premier Paints, which closed trading at 12 naira 10 kobo, making a positive adjustment of 10%. You look at Fortis Global Insurance, which closed its trading yesterday at 101 naira 24 kobo, to make a positive adjustment of 9.73%. And then the last on this top 5 losers chart is Custodian Investment, which closed trading yesterday at 70 naira, making a positive 6.0% adjustment. And on the chart of losers chart, there's the losers table. We are seeing Dangote Sugar, closing in the dip. Yes, the deepest of the deep of a minus 10%, closing his book at 74 naira 70 kobo. We see Jai's Bank closing equally in a very big dip as well, of a minus 10% negative adjustment, closing at 10 naira 80 kobo. And then we saw Union Daikon Salt, which is traded as Union Daikon, closing at 14 naira 95 kobo in the dip of 9.94%. And the last on this roll is HM Call, which equally closed in the dip of minus 9.89% to close at 3 naira 92 kobo. And when you look at the the market's activity, you see that volume of shares traded rose to around 805.25 million shares, worth 38.42 billion naira in deals totaling 71,312. Yes, and then the most traded stock by volume remained Access Holdings, which led with over 46 million shares traded. And in terms of value, we see that Zenith Bank is holding its fort as well. And then moving over to the Naira performance, we can tell you that against the dollar, the official market, the dollar held its own by closing 1,382 naira 65 kobo, while at the black market, or the street market as many want to call it, it closed at 1,385 naira to 1,395 naira. And against the British pound, the Naira closed at the official market at 1,755 naira 40 kobo, as against the 1,760 to 1,775 at the street market. And looking at euro, the Naira was able to make a steady stride at closing at 1,502 naira 15 kobo at the official market, whereas at the black market, the para market, if you want to, it closed at 1,505 naira to 1,520 naira. And that is it for our business update this morning at ANEKE TV's from ANEKE TV's business parlor. Yes, and that's all this morning.
Thank you very much. And that's a wrap on this edition of Sunrise on ANEKE TV. Thank you for waking up with us. It's always a pleasure having you. I'm Good Hope Chukuma. Thank you for watching.
All right. And on behalf of all of us here at Sunrise at ANEKE TV, we'll say thank you for watching. And keep watching till come your way same time tomorrow. I remain Uche Osai. Bye-bye.